To think this awful duo had made so many children miserable caused the old lady's dark heart to sing with joy. The Isle of Mulch often had visitors, providing fresh victims for the gluttons. The gruesome twosome were not the best advertisements for their own ice cream. Both ate so much of it straight from the pump that their teeth had turned black or fallen out altogether. Sometimes a rotten tooth would fly out mid sentence and hit a child on the head. Ping! Look, see, there's a rotten tooth flying out from Glenn or Glenda Glutton and hitting somebody on the head. Because they ate so much ice cream, Glenn and Glenda Glutton had ballooned, so much so that they never left their van. They couldn't. It was impossible for them to fit through the doors, so the Gluttons slept in the van, ate in the van, they even did their doodahs in the van. Just don't ask for the chocolate sprinkles. They don't smell anything like chocolate. Ugh. As Ned zoomed over the island in his slocket, he spotted a long line of children. They were from the posh boarding school on the Isle of Twaddle. Their hideous purple and yellow blazers gave them away. The pupils must have been on a trip to see the world's most boring tourist attraction, Mulch's medieval fort. It was a ruin, little more than a few old stones jutting out of the ground. Because it was old, grown-ups decided that children had to go and look at it, often for hours at a time. "Dive!" ordered the boy. Still riding the slocket, he hovered over the heads of the children. They were too sad to even crack a smile at a rocket made of slime. "What happened?" Ned called out from above. "It was those rotten ice cream sellers," sobbed one. "They took a mammoth order of ice creams from our whole school and they made off with all our pocket money," blubbered another. "The pair were so rude, they shouted, 'So long, suckers,' as they sped off in their dirty old van," snuffled a third. See, that's him coming in on his slocket. Can you see that? I think. There it is. That's right. And then that's the kids all upset about the fact that they didn't get their ice cream. "Well, we thought having ice cream would help us get over the crushing disappointment of having visited the world's dullest tourist attraction," bawled a fourth. "But we were wrong. It's made this school trip the worst day out ever," yelled a fifth. "I would actually prepare to be doing double mathematics at the Twaddle College for Noble Offspring right now." "Surely nothing is worse than double mathematics," exclaimed Ned. "This is," replied the previous child before bursting into floods of tears. "Boo-hoo!" This set all the Twaddle children off again. It was a symphony of sobbing. "These kids are really annoying," murmured Slime. "Shush," shushed Ned before turning to the children to ask, which way did the gruesome twosome go? All the children were bawling their eyes out, actually unable to speak. "Oh, for goodness sake," muttered Slime. "Shush!" Instead, the children pointed, fortunately all in the same direction. "Thank you, kids. Slime, that way," ordered Ned, and he zoomed off. "I'll be back, twaddlers." The Isle of Mulch was a network of long, windy country roads sheltered by trees, so it was difficult to spot vehicles from above. But then Glutton's Glaciers was no ordinary vehicle. This great pink monstrosity with a giant model of a Mr. Whippy ice cream on its roof would be visible from outer space. Soon the van rolled into view. Silly Darcy. Soon the van rolled into view, and Ned signalled for Slime to zoom down beside it. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Glutton didn't see the strange sight of a boy riding a slocket zooming beside them. Glenn was in the driving seat, devouring a humongous handful of ice cream with a flake sticking out of it. Ned tapped on the driver's window to get the brute's attention. At first, Glenn smiled and nodded back before the surreal display made him slam on his brakes. Screech! The ice cream he was scoffing went everywhere, all over his face, splat, and all over the windscreen, splut. Meanwhile, in the back, Mrs. Glutton had been counting the cash she'd stolen from the Twaddle children. Because of the sudden stop, she found herself upside down on the floor of the van. Look, there she is with all the money. "Help me, you fool!" she cried out to her husband, unable to pull herself up to stand. "I can't see," shouted Mr. Glutton as he scrambled over his seat into the back of the van. As he did so, his huge foot knocked the tap on the ice cream pump. Splurge! Mr. Whippy began swamping them. "Ah!" cried Mrs. G. "My body is frozen." Still blind from having a face full of ice cream, Mr. G tripped over his wife and fell right on top of her. "Oof!" he cried. "Ouch!" she cried. "Get off me, you great lump." "I am not a great lump." "No, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. You are a massive lump." Ned, who was still hovering outside the window, burst out laughing. "Someone's laughing at us," barked Mr. Glutton. "They are really gonna get it," bawled Mrs. Glutton. Chapter 21. Peeved Cow. Peeved means cranky and irritated and upset. Mrs. Glutton shoved her lump of a husband off her and scrambled to her feet. Next, she shut off the ice cream tap, which had still been splurging away. "It's Ned," announced Ned, still hovering outside their van on his slocket. "Remember me?" The boy was sure the pair would, after so cruelly stealing his pound note. No. There he is on his slocket. Whoops. "No," barked Glenda. "Should I?" "Yes," said the boy, miffed that he hadn't been remembered. "I know you," began Glenn. Ned smiled. "Go on." "Aren't you the boy who was just flying by my window?" "Yes," snapped Ned, "but I mean before then, obviously." "You don't ring any bells," muttered Glenda. "I am Ned. I ordered a Mr. Whippy. I gave you a pound note. You just stole it and sped off. No ice cream, no nothing." Mr. and Mrs. Glutton looked at each other. Sorry, still no, not a clue," said Mrs. Glutton. "To be honest," began Mr. G, "we do that all day, every day, so try as we might, we can't remember all the individual victims." "Don't take it to heart, boy," chirped Mrs. G, licking Mr. Whippy off her chin with her thick, rough tongue. If this was meant to pacify Ned, it had the opposite effect. The boy became enraged. Look, there they are in their ice cream thing. Truck. "Well, I'm going to get my revenge on the pair of you for me and the hundreds of other children you've robbed." The pair looked at each other and burst out laughing. "Hundreds," began Mr. Glutton. "It's more like thousands." "Millions," chuckled his wife. "Billions, trillions, zillions." And they laughed again. "Well, I, Ned, am going to use my slime power for all of them," announced Ned. "You what?" grunted Glenn. "The boy's bananas," grunted Glenda. "Your crime spree is over." "You'll have to catch us first," exclaimed Mr. Glutton. With that, he hauled himself onto the driving seat and stamped on the accelerator pedal. Stomp! Vroom! "So long, sucker," they shouted. Their ice cream van lurched off. Screech! Toppling Mrs. Glutton off her feet again. "Oof!" she cried as she landed on her ample bottom. The problem was that the windscreen was still covered in ice cream. Mr. Gutton could not see a thing. As a result, the van skidded off the road, screech, smashed through a hedge, crunched, then bumped its way across a field of cows. Bump, bump, bump. Moo! 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 Cried the cow, as well you might if an ice cream van was speeding straight at you, and of course if you were a cow. Look, see. See that? Watch where you're going, you fool, yelled Mrs. Glutton, bouncing up and down in the back. I can't see a blasted thing, yelled Mr. Glutton. He flicked on the windscreen wipers. Swish, swash, swish, swash. The ice cream won't come off, he bellowed. That's because it's on the inside, you ignoramus, Mrs. Glutton bellowed back. The man shook his head and wiped the inside of the windscreen with his sleeve. At last he could see, but the sight that greeted Mr. Glutton made him shriek with horror. Ah! On Ned's suggestion, slime had formed itself into a giant Mr. Whippy ice cream, and the boy was the topping. Remember me now? Called Ned. See, he's there. The ice cream van was heading straight for it. Still no, barked Mr. Glutton. He was driving too fast to make the van stop. He stamped on the brake hard, stomped so hard that the back wheels jumped up in the air. Whoosh! It somersaulted over the giant Mr. Whippy before crash landing upside down on the grass. Ker-thump. Moo! Cried the cows as they scattered out of the way. Slime translimed back into a blob, placing Ned onto the back of a peeved-looking cow. Moo! Ned patted the cow. Good girl. We'll get you for this, boy, shouted an upside-down Mr. Glutton. We'll get you good and proper, agreed an upside-down Mrs. Glutton. Then the boy gave the cow a gentle slap and it trotted closer to the ice cream van. Well, seeing as you love ice cream so much, I thought you might like to try the special slime flavour. Slime flavour? Bawled Glenn. Sounds disgusting, bawled Glenda. It is, replied the boy. Slime. Let's give the good Mr. and Mrs. Glutton a humongous helping. Splendid idea, Ned, Slime said before oozing through the gap in the window. No, the pig screamed as the goo began filling up their upturned van. Still the slime oozed and oozed in until the entire upside-down ice cream van was full to bursting. Then the windscreen, the windows and the doors exploded with pressure. Crack! Smash! Boom! The van broke into pieces. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The gruesome twosome oozed out on the cowpat-covered grass in a giant puddle of slime or sluddle. See, there they are. They're just coming out. The whole thing's falling apart. Ugh, moaned Mrs. Glutton. I'm all slimy. What's he done to our van? Cried Mr. Glutton. Slime, seize their ice cream, ordered Ned. Goody, goody, replied the blob as it gathered itself back together. No, cried the pair. We've barely eaten today, said Mr. G. We're starving, said Mrs. G. But Slime was quick and soon pulled the huge metal ice cream dispenser out of the wreck of the van. Clunk. We have some hungry children to feed, Ned announced. Let's fly. Slime became a giant airship or slime airplane and picked up the boy from the back of the cow. Moo! Then it whisked Ned and the ice cream dispenser high into the sky. We'll get you, began Mr. Glutton. What's your name again? So long, suckers, called back Ned.